Hey, good morning, everybody. How is it going? Let's see. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear Ableton, the usual stuff. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm gonna have a look at the chat. Hey, Pierre. Hey, Sergio. It's awesome to have you guys here. What's up, Waleed? Just having my morning coffee and celebrating the launch of our newest program, the Composer Accelerator. And thought I just wanted to jump on here and actually show you this technique or exercise / little challenge that I would really recommend that you do over the next days or weeks or whatever, that I think would really help with a lot of the things that people have been learning from the challenge and some of the problems that you face when you move through a track. And this is an exercise that actually helps you avoid overthinking, thinking outside of the box, and it can give you some exercise in just completing tracks and working with what you've got. So what this exercise is based around is basically extreme minimalism and limitations. So one of the things that I saw from the challenge and that I got in messages, emails, and DMs and so on is that a lot of people did not think they would be able to finish a track in that short of a time. But because of the deadline and the limitations they had and something that kind of guided them, like the video, it became possible, even for those who have never scored a picture before. And a lot of people really talked about how having certain limitations really can be liberating and actually help you work faster than if you have too many options. And this is one of the things that is the biggest issue I feel, and that so many people have confirmed to me, both colleagues and people I work with, as well as people who are students. And this is the sense of too many options and potential opportunities when you're opening up a project like this. Because where on earth do you even begin? And how can you wrap your head around finding a structured workflow where you actually have a goal and you're working in a focused way throughout the idea towards the finished completed product? And one of the ways to make this way less daunting is to set limitations. So I'm going to show you an exercise that I actually came up with yesterday, even though I've done similar things in the past. But something I want to try and something I'm going to go into more detail on Monday's live stream. I'm going to be doing a live stream almost the same time as now, 10 a.m. PST, it's 11 right now. So I'll do that on Monday, where I'm going to go more in depth into some of these principles and some more live composing. But the core of it is this. You take only a piano and you make, say, 1, 2, 3, or 4 layers, and you create a piano sketch essentially. But you can morph and process the piano however you want to create various textures as you create some more space and give them specific, distinct roles. And your goal is to create just any chord progression, and the less impressive it is, the better, more or less. The only goal with this challenge or exercise is to come up with any kind of chord progression, and then maybe a melody, then maybe background texture, and maybe a bass or something if you want that. Then from there, you should try to create like these blocks that have each section or each part, and turn these blocks alone, just these 4 or 5 blocks, super simple, into a whole simple track structure. It could be just like 90 seconds like this. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It's just a little exercise to work with limitations, just to go from beginning to the end. And it might sound a bit silly, might sound stupid. You might think, oh, that's not going to amount to anything. But you'll be surprised what you are capable of doing within these limitations, and you are absolutely going to learn something. So I just want to kind of start to demonstrate some of these things in live here, also while looking at some of these comments. Hey, Marco, what's up? And Todd, great to see you here. Yes, we'll definitely do questions. You can shoot questions anytime. We can also do more questions towards the end. I'm not going to go live for a very long time today. Just want to make this short and sweet, and I'm going to do a longer live stream on Monday. So definitely tune in then, prepare some questions you might have. I just wanted to show you the gist of this exercise in case you want to try it out this weekend. So let's come up with a chord progression. Something super simple. Gotta put in the click track. Something like that. I'm just gonna quantize it really quick because we want this to just be very specific and easy to use building blocks. And here I can see I'm already just ruining, I think, the quantization here because that's an 8th note. There we go. So we have this now. I'm just gonna make this into literally a building block. And here again comes some of the parts I talked about on day 3 of the live stream. When you cut these things, you got to make sure that you're not chopping off any of the notes and that they're actually hitting on the 1 when you're cutting off these things. Because I like to keep things neat and tidy and make sure that this is just, that's the block and that's it. Okay, we got chords. Now let's try to do another roll. We can, for example, do bass. Let's see. So this one, I'll go to lower octave. Actually, this is not super efficient. I'll just copy this and just take the bass out. There we go. Now we got a bass line. And here's the thing, we can process these however we want. So when I say limited to using the piano, that's just you're only using the piano because the piano is very versatile, but it's just a piano. You're not thinking of brass, woodwinds, strings, cellos, everything in between, every shade of it. You only have that as the source. So say for this bass, I might want to put on a filter. And for this, I definitely want to like take off all kinds of nice little reverbs and stuff like that. Maybe take down the color, and I might also put on decapitator. Who knows? This is the thing, like I just try to just make the most out of each layer, and it's going to teach you some processing tips. It's going to teach you a lot of ways of just thinking outside of the box when you don't have the things you usually have. Then I want to make the velocity a little bit more even. Here we go. So this is the bass. That's the chords. Now let's just go and create some background textures. And these are all kind of exercises that we'll be using in the Composer Accelerator. Some of them are unconventional, but they have helped me so much. And they really help you not overthink and focus on just momentum and going, while still focusing on the key pillars and core principles that are just timeless and work for any style and just help you craft better tracks. Because I'm all about focusing on the essence of what makes an arrangement good. And it doesn't come down to genre specific things. It's all about adhering to kind of timeless principles of the overtones, voice leading and spacing, and so on, and understanding how the human ear and brain perceives music. Once you kind of get these pillars down, for me it's been easy then going into electronic music, going into hip hop music, going into these things, because the principles are just the same as for the orchestra. So I recommend thinking of things as trying to understand the underlying principles and not necessarily just the surface scenarios. So this is an exercise that just helps a little bit with that. So in this case, let's just create some crazy washed out reverb things, and we'll make a little background texture. I'm gonna make this completely washed out. Just add a quick deal. I'm just using like stock plugins mostly now. Again, it's not about perfection, it's just about doing. This is kind of like a gym workout. We're not trying to compete for the Olympics here. We're just getting the reps in. There we go, a little loop. Gonna quantize that. A little bit early on these, I see. 8 notes. right, let's do some melody-like things. So here I might want to take off the decapitator. Okay, so this is clipping like crazy. And for this one, I might want to have a little bit of reverb. I might take out some of the low end. Again, just broad strokes. Putting the reverb on, not as crazy as the texture, because again, what this forces you to do is not only think about the composition, but also the foreground, middle ground, background. So I'm pushing these textures to the back with the bass, putting these in the middle ground, and I'm gonna make a melody for the foreground. Hey Ariel, awesome to see you. Congrats on the challenge. Everybody in there absolutely crushed it. I'm so impressed to see all of the results that people have been getting. Just demonstrating a little exercise here to just practice finishing and completing things and accepting something like an idea and just running with it and try to complete something in a very short time span, just as an exercise. So let's just improvise some kind of melody. Alright, random melody, we'll run with it. Like, this is a kind of situation where I am just literally going with the first thing that comes to my mind, or it doesn't even come to my mind, but just whatever first thing happens. Just gonna fix these notes. Okay, so now I have something, right? Now what I would do is that I would say, okay, with these elements, what can I do? So maybe I want to start with just these textures, and I might wait with the bass. I might have that in the next part. I'll just start playing with these blocks, right? So the melody, I might want that to come in maybe later. I might want the chords to come in maybe about here with just chords and texture. Again, now that I have the 4 blocks, I'm thinking of how do I get here? And then that's usually a less intense question than where do I go from here? Because that answer is completely limitless. But how do I get here is usually a lot more defined and easy to go. And the thing is, when you're working, at least I prefer that, like, if there's something that is a sure thing, like a sure bet, and that you know that it kind of has to happen, like, you kind of need an intro. And if you have a theme with 4 layers, you don't want to just lead everything into there with just some random other theme, because you want to make it sound familiar, which means you have to reuse some components, which means it's going to be a lot easier to work with that and figure out how to get there than just figure out, okay, where do I go from here? And once you have, say, 3 or 4 sections, the track is suddenly kind of having an identity, and then you have certain limitations that if you go too far away from those origins, it's just going to sound random. So then you're creating limitations for yourself, which just facilitates more freedom, because now you don't have this overwhelming sense of just, I could do anything, which is very stifling and can stop you from working, basically, if you have too many things to overthink. Let's see. I'm gonna read some questions as well. So we got, my biggest problem is that I always have the complete piece in my head, all sections completed. The biggest problem is to let go of this in a composing state, resulting in a writer's block. Let me see if I understand what you are saying. You say you have the complete piece in your head, all sections completed. I'm just wondering, why would you want to let go of that in a composing state? If you can clarify, that would be great. Or are you just talking about executing the ideas in your head, making them sound the same? Let me know so I understand the question completely. Todd says, my biggest issue is that being a beginner, everything you write sounds so simplistic. So when it comes to that, I guess it's kind of 2 sides to it. The first thing is simplicity is great. You can do so much with simplicity. And some of the greatest pieces are ridiculously simple. And one thing you'll figure out once you get to a more advanced stage is that the simplest things are usually the hardest. It's very easy to mask things with a lot of complexity, but once things are stripped back to just bare minimalism, you have to make sure that every element is doing the absolute most. Which brings me back to this exercise. I only have 4 things now, and I only have a piano. But I have to kind of like create some roles. I have to make sure every element, like the bass note, the background texture, is doing the absolute most. So say I have these chords and this texture is not being very efficient. Then I just have chords with some random notes in the back that doesn't really drive anything. But this texture is alive and moving and a bit more engaging. So you have to just get the most out of every element when you don't have too many elements to work with. So that's one side of the things. The other side is kind of just patience, being okay with things not sounding great in the beginning. My stuff, as I've mentioned several times, I deleted all of the tracks I first uploaded to YouTube because I was just simply embarrassed. I just listened and I was like, God, this is absolute garbage. No one should be allowed to even listen to this. It would be a disgrace to anyone's ears to be exposed to this. So I just deleted it. And I just realized that was just self-doubt and, the whole package that comes with being a creative most of the time and venturing into these new fields. And I just realized I gotta be okay with this stuff sucking for a good moment and just pushing through, just writing one more piece, just one more piece, one more piece. And each time it just sucks a little bit less. And eventually you start to like impress yourself in little moments. And eventually you start to impress yourself in medium moments. And then eventually you'll get to tracks where you're like, shit, this is something. And that's when things get really fun. I mean, it's still fun in the beginning when you're just exploring, but it can also be overwhelming and a bit frustrating because you know what you want it to hear like, you have references for what you want it to sound like, and you can't really bridge that gap. But that is something that takes just time, and if you love what you're doing, then that's not an issue. You will definitely sink the time into it. But I would just get away from the mindset of like beginner means simplistic or minimalism, and advanced means advanced music. It's usually kind of the other way or some kind of curve. So don't think like you need to make things advanced. Focus on just making simple but effective compositions and make as many compositions as you can. I would personally recommend. What's up, Mario? Congrats on your epic submission. I really, really enjoyed that one. And let me see if I can get back to the other question as well. The ideas are fine. Execution problem is here. Complete symphony in my head if I don't get a part. Right. Yeah, I would let go of perfectionism. It's good to strive for trying to make quality, but when your ideals become like self-sabotaging, they are not good ideals anymore. So I would again just try to focus on getting some things finished and being okay with it not being exactly the way you want it to sound in your head in the beginning. It took me years to get anything to sound the way I wanted it. I remember when I did my first release for one of like a music library many years ago, I could not get the mix to sound the way I wanted. I was just sitting there pulling my hair out, and I could have been sitting there for probably a year because I would never get to the quality of the reference mix, which was sadly 2 steps from hell. And I did not realize that was like live recorded and mastered and produced by some of the best people in the game. And I was trying to match that with my little sample libraries, having produced music for a year. At some point, I could have just wasted my whole youth there in that room on that one release. At some point, you just have to let it go and just keep moving on, making more music, because it's finishing more tracks that's going to both give you the growth and lessons you need to progress, but also that's going to give you the momentum in terms of having a catalog out there, posting your tracks, sharing them with other people in the industry, getting them with publishers that are working for you, and so on. So I would let go of these perfectionist mindsets and just focus on completing tracks in the beginning. And simplicity, John Williams' score is not simple at all. It's a pop music, like simplicity is great. For sure, but a lot of film scores are very simple. Whether you're thinking about Hans Zimmer, and a lot of the John Williams things, if you listen to and dissect some of his scores, it's not actually as complex as you think. Some of it is, yes, but some of its most iconic themes are both really advanced but really simple. Like the masters also make something that is really complex sound simple, because the simplest ideas are the easiest to comprehend. So when you're asking people to sing the Star Wars theme, there's still a core of it that is very clear and distinct. It's not 7-8 different layers doing completely different things, but still working. So let me say, you still keep coming up with the same chord progressions. How do you compose unique progressions? I would say listen to more music and then just try to pick little things and bits and pieces that you like from these different tracks and try to incorporate similar chord movements and turns in your music. Or check out my course Harmonic Exploration Roadmap, which also helps with that. But I don't want to just keep pushing that. I would definitely start by slowly just expanding your vocabulary, understanding the fundamentals of diatonic chord progressions, so that you're not just taking chord progressions, but you understand how they relate to one another, how to piece them together, and also how to borrow chords. I would also look up chromatic mediant modulations and modal interchange, all things I'm going through in Harmonic Exploration Roadmap, as well as Cinematic Music too, if you have access to any of those courses. Those principles really help me just break out of my shell and really expand further in terms of the harmony. Embrace the suck, someone says. Love that. Absolutely. It's a big part of it. Yeah, don't self-sabotage. I've done that way too many times, and it's not the best. It doesn't really help. So let me just get back to this stuff, just to show you what this is all about. So now we got an intro thing. And I might want to actually start with the chords and then just bring this in. This is not about trying to make a track that sounds amazing, by the way. This is just about trying to work with limitations and create a whole structure really quickly without getting stuck. Because again, the more you do that, the better. And the simpler you make it for yourself to actually go through that a few times, the better. I've got some chords. And have this evolving background texture coming in. And I might bring in the melody, maybe the second repetition. Bass comes in. Maybe take out the melody in this part. Keep this. Then maybe just the bass and the texture. And you get the idea. You start just like building up a little structure, and then eventually you might want to have a contrasting section here. And then maybe I want to keep a texture, because I want to just move fast right now. I'll take this, and maybe I just invert it. And I wonder what happens if I reverse it too. And then maybe take down the filter. Because reusing elements but messing with them and using them in a different section and pairing them with something else, like a new chord progression. Like this one goes from F major to A. That's a melody. Now maybe I go something that goes from D minor. I'll just do the first chords that come to mind, nothing crazy. So oops, that's the wrong section. From here I can also get my bass by just removing most of these elements. So this way you can then start building various sections and just simply practice making these sections, practice reusing elements, because I only have 4 things to deal with. But it's still the same principles as if you have 200 tracks in a project. It's just you're making it easier for yourself to practice these things. Coming up with track structures really quickly, trying out different things. It makes it super easy. And you also have the limitations of just using the piano. And you can kind of go a lot further than this as well. You know, if you want to go even further, I'm not going to go too much in depth today. Again, we're going to use this a lot more in the Composer Accelerator program, go through many more principles for track structures, coming up with themes, chord progressions, harmony, production, everything. But this is one thing I would just like everybody to try. And you can go, you decide how deep the rabbit hole goes. I could resample this thing and then just bend it into oblivion if I wanted to. Because again, it's all about just keeping one source, 4 or like 3 to 5 layers, and then just playing around with the structure, finishing it. And you don't have to share it anywhere. It's just at least you have finished something and you've gone through every step of the process, from coming up with a melody, coming up with harmony, texture, creating a track structure, doing the production, and like tweaking these sounds into fulfilling the role of foreground, middle ground, background very efficiently, and you'll have something at the end. So I'm gonna take this, reverse it, like a new background thing just from that. And you get the idea. So this is an exercise I really recommend. You can use it with any other instruments too. I just feel the piano is very versatile and kind of clean and easy to work with. So I really recommend doing that. And it's also just a great exercise to come up with melodies, but then from there, turning them into track structures and just getting the whole workflow practiced. Because if you're always coming up with ideas but never practicing how to finish them, you'll all of a sudden be kind of like a guy in the gym that only trains his arms and chest and he has like tiny legs because he never focuses on the entire body. You don't want to be in a place where you're really good at coming up with ideas but you just cannot finish them because you've created 100 ideas but only finished 1 or 2. Because there's a massive imbalance between your ability to start and then finish. And with Composer Accelerator, the goal is to help you streamline the entire process from beginning to end so that there's no friction at any stage. You don't get stuck at this or that path, and you're able to just smoothly flow through that whole process from starting to finishing a track over and over again, and thus get better, get some momentum, get more opportunities, and so on. Let me see if it's possible to give us some feedback. Yeah, in the program, you'll get feedback every week if you want to. We'll have also tutors to help out and everything. And you can also post it in the student groups. And also, yeah, on Monday, of course, it's early. My head is still waking up. On Monday, I'm doing a specific feedback session on live stream where anyone can actually just pitch in. And you'll get an email about that, I believe, later today, where you will have a link where you can drop your files, and it's a first come first serve basis where I'll just be listening through tracks, pinpointing some problematic areas, some things that are great, some things that could be better. So everybody pull up on Monday, submit your tracks. You'll get a link in hopefully by the end of the day, I think, depending on the time zones, where you can submit anything and we'll have a look at it. You can ask questions. I'll just try to help in every way that I can. And someone's asking, see, aren't using EQ limiters and filters in almost all layers? How do you decide that? It's just by hearing what sounds best, or is there some preferable rules with piano strings, etc.? No, I'm literally just using my ear. So, and I'm also not using it for mixing purposes as much right now. These are just like a compressor that piano runs through, just makes it just sound warmer and a bit thicker, just glues it together a bit. Here I just want to just quickly get rid of the low end because I don't want that to conflict with this and that layer. I just want the high end kind of energy. And the filters I only now use for automation. And this is kind of a polishing stage thing, but I know where I want to go. So I always have these available so I can easily make these textures that are evolving and moving at all times. Like if we look at this, for example, this would not be possible without that filter. So that's just because of that. It's part of the effect. I also just wanted this to be like super spacious. So I just slapped on some random reverbs and delays, stuck stuff without overthinking it. I will go back and like dial this in later. I don't really overthink this too much. It's all about just moving forward, just getting the rough ballpark thing. So it's like 70-80% there, just moving on. And then once I get to the polishing stage and I have the whole arrangement, then I know exactly what I will want it to sound like, and I can go in and make those changes. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, make sure you're on the newsletter so you get these email updates. That's where we're sending everything. Yeah, so pervade stands for presentation, repetition, variation, distractions. So if you come, I can just quickly demonstrate that. It's a method that has helped me so much, and so many of the students have gone through cinematic music and so on. And I have various variations and kind of continuations of this that we'll go through in the first week of the Composer Accelerator as well, in a few weeks from now. But the basics of the method is that if you look at a lot of melodies, most of them are built on a motif. So a motif is the heart, the musical identity of something. So that is a motif. So is or even just is a motif too. Or in Jurassic Park, these little things are little motifs that carry the identity of the track. Now, if you listen to a lot of these motifs or come up with one alone, you'll see that most of them don't just start with the motif and then go off in random notes. There's usually some structure to it. And more often than not, they tend to be a combination of repetitions and variations of the same motif. So if I come up with just notes that go super simple, just C major, that would be the motif, and then I could do a repetition of it. And then I could do a variation where I kind of keep the same core of it, but tweak it a little bit. So, and then often there's a destruction because you don't want to just repeat this over and over and over again. That just becomes boring. So you might want to wrap it up to something different. And that could be as simple as, because that's not in the motif. And then if you pair that with some chords, you see, now I'm just taking that motif and I'm just doing some variations of it, but I'm repeating it, but making sure I'm changing it enough to not make it boring. And that was just C, D, E, G, just a C major chord. So that's the principle that's really helpful to just come up with things out of thin air. Again, we'll go through so many more principles for how to come up with interesting ideas quickly without feeling stuck or overwhelmed in the program. But that's one of my favorite methods that I go through in Cinematic Music 1 and basically all of my courses, because it's for beginners, it's absolutely perfect, I feel. And even for advanced things, it's just eventually you won't really think about it as structured as that, but it's more just in the back of your head, a balance between repetition and variation. That's all that it's about. And these ratios kind of come back in the track structuring stage where you want a sense of repetition, but also some variation and a balance in between them. The piano here is the, what is it called again? The Woodchester piano, I think. Yeah, that's it. It's a great piano. It's just the first one I actually found. I changed which ones I'm using the most. That's the first thing that I actually picked up right now. So to circle back, I would really recommend trying to set up a little exercise like this, so making sure I haven't missed any questions. If so, I'll go through after and reply. But yeah, I would recommend doing this kind of exercise. You don't have to use the piano. You can use your guitar. You can use ukulele. You can use one single patch or just woodwinds. It's just piano is very easy to kind of shape and mold. Another option would be to just use kind of a sine wave on a synth and using the filters there and the attack and decay envelopes and sustain envelopes to craft different sounds. But that's something I'm going to come back to and go through more in the production side of the Composer Accelerator, about understanding synths, explaining them in a very easy way that helped me comprehend exactly how to use them and build sound from scratch. But you can use any kind of sound source. And piano, everyone has a piano library. Even the cheapest, store-bought digital pianos have some great piano sounds. So it's a good starting point that's very easy to get to, and you can easily make background textures, melodies, bass lines, chords, and then build up quick structures. And again, the piano is a starting point. You can process this however you want. So it's an exercise I really recommend. Let me know if you have any more questions or if there's any questions about the program. Yes, you can rewatch all of these public live streams anytime that you want. But I really appreciate all of you that actually show up and engage, ask some questions while I'm sitting here rambling and having my morning coffee. So let me know if you have any more questions, either about workflow in general, finishing tracks or starting tracks, or the program, and I would be happy to answer those. If not, you can reach me at any time on the Evenant platform. You can just send me a DM there, or send an email to arn@evenant.com. Or if you have technical or payment related things with questions, you just can send those to support@evenant.com, and our rockstar Emma will take very good care of you. And you can do that anytime later today or throughout the weekend. If anything comes up later, don't hesitate to hit me up. And again, a little reminder, Monday, live stream with track feedback open for anybody that wants to submit something. And I will be going through those tracks and giving my honest thoughts and opinions on that. So we're talking about a program. Right now this morning, we opened up the doors to a brand new program called the Composer Accelerator, which is my newest and most comprehensive cinematic music program that I've ever done. So it's a continuation of Cinematic Music 1 and 2, and basically a result of all of the feedback that I've gotten from students about what they want to learn further, what they're struggling with, and putting together a program that aims to help solve all of these issues across 8 weeks with 2 weekly live calls on most likely Mondays and Thursdays, where we're going to go through specific parts of the workflow in each week and really streamline the entire workflow and work on improving both the compositions, arrangements, track structures, production, mock-ups, and realism, and so on, and building up a workflow where you can go through the entire stage of coming up with an idea, developing that idea quickly, turning into track structure, and so on, until a completed track, just over and over again, to really just get better at starting and finishing tracks consistently and faster without sacrificing quality, just removing all friction and taking your tracks to the next level. So it's going to go into more advanced details and principles than my other courses, and it's made to cater to the ones who have kind of gone through those courses or have equal experience but kind of want to go deeper and further, and also have the component of me being here live like right now, so you can ask questions, have me demonstrate things, feedback the actual tracks, and work more directly with specific problems instead of just having a standardized pre-recorded curriculum for everyone to go through. So it's probably going to be my latest last cinematic music program that I'm doing, and I'm really excited to just give it everything I've got and try to make this the best experience for everybody who's in there. So Walid can probably drop a link to the information of the program if you're interested in seeing if it's for you. If you have any questions in regards to helping me figure out if you think it would be a good fit for you based on your experience and so on, you can just drop me a message and I'll be happy to help out. But that's the general gist of it. I'm really excited to kick this one off, and we're going to have now a kind of an intro welcome period where we just get prepared for the next couple of weeks before we really kick this off. Question on orchestra track, John Williams, would you be your sketch approach when you start? But texture. I would, definitely in terms of like John Williams-esque orchestrations, I would always start with a sketch and a melody. And I know for a fact that's what he usually does as well, as far as I know, as he is a pianist and that's his background. And to me, the heart of a track usually must have to come from an interesting idea, a melodic idea, and then building around that. Even though orchestrations will become really, really embellished and complex at times, that is a stage 2 kind of thing, or even stage 3. First, it starts with the ignition of the idea, making sure the idea is solid, and then you can start building out that, and both horizontally developing the idea across time, but also vertically to make it more dense and more complex in terms of the arrangement. So I would usually just start with the sketch like any other track, and then just worry about the complexity later, and not let the thought of this is going to be a complex orchestration hinder you from approaching it in a normal, casual, relaxed way, if that makes sense. What headphones I use? Oh, I'm Bose QC35 2 or whatever they're called, all the way. By accident. I just love the way they sound and the way they work, even though they're not neutral by any means. My other whatever those were, I can't even remember. I got a complete blank right now. My other headphones just died on me. So I've been using these ones now, but I don't really use headphones that much except when I have to, and on airplanes when I'm on the go. Otherwise, I have my Adam A77Xs next to me here, which do the job beautifully. So I really recommend these headphones too. I was talking to Austin Selcher, the mixing engineer, the other day. He swears by them as well. I know a lot of people that just really, really love these headphones, and can only recommend them. It's my daily driver in terms of headphones. So you said, where should we drop an email if you have any questions about the course? So if it's about the actual programming, music things and stuff like that, Arn at Evenant. If it's regards to technical things or customer support or payment things or payment structures or split payments or payment plans, those things go to support@evenant.com to be taken care of by Emma, if that makes sense. But anything about the actual program or music, or just to have a little conversation, arn@evenant.com, or direct message me on the Evenant platform. It's open anytime. Instrumental cues built differently from scores? Oh, absolutely. So, depending if I'm understanding it correctly, the end format and purpose of the track or piece of music you're writing always dictates the format and structure. So I would not approach the ignition stage necessarily any different. No, actually that is a complete lie. Everything is dictated by what's the end goal. So if I'm scoring a film, everything is dictated by the image and the story. Not just what the visuals look like, but what is the underlying story that might not even be told directly in this scene or in this clip. But what is the music hinting to that maybe the words don't express? What is the emotion that the director or writer wants to highlight right here? And what is the role of the music to actually communicate to the viewer and listener? Like, which role does the music play in this kind of artistic conversation between the actual art form and the viewer? So then that affects my ignition stage. Like, what ideas do I come up with that actually fit that format? And then in the build stage, if there's a picture, you have to make sure that it's actually following the energy and the whole development of that image, and that is your guideline. You cannot really go away from that more often than not. While if you're just making an instrumental cue that is, say, made for micro licensing or advertising, then it's completely different. Then I'm making something based on what kind of advertising or usage am I making this for. Am I really trying to make something really crazy for like big sports campaigns, like Super Bowl things, UFC, and like epic extreme sports and car commercials? Is that what I'm going for? Then that's going to affect how I do the ignition station, which ideas to come up with, and also how do I structure it to kind of keep that build and to ride that tension based on what I know that these editors and people that are working with this music to whatever picture they would be having would be easy for them to work with. And if I would be making something that's, say, for, something that's very sweeping and just like slowly growing and evolving, that is just to be used as a background for, say, time lapses or, short filmmakers or anything like that, then that would also dictate how I do the build, the orchestration, the arrangement, and so on. So for me, the difference is quite big, but also that's what I had. The Bayer Dynamic DT770. That's exactly what I used to have. Love them. Great headphones. The one of the ears just fell off, sadly. Rest in peace. It's been with me for many, many years, since the very first tracks I ever made. But yeah, just getting back to the question, any tips in building instrumental cues would be know kind of like what are you going for, what's the purpose of this track, what's the role of this track, and that's going to dictate what kind of build do you want. Like, is this made for being cut to visuals? Is this meant for purely listening purposes? Because if you listen to stuff that, you know, say Tony Anderson's things for Music Bed, and then you listen to, say, Olafur Arnald's stuff, like, they have certain similar expressions at sometimes, but of course they're different composers. But Olafur is making his albums mostly just for listening, so it will have a different structure, different expression, while, say, Tony Anderson's tracks, a lot of them are made for licensing on Music Bed, at least the older things. So that is, you know, depending on where you want to go with things and what it's for, that's dictating your structure and everything like that. So you need to be aware of that, I think, and if you don't have any plans, just go with it, just experiment. But there's a lot of things I could say about track structure. I got my track structure boot camp, which is a 4-hour workshop where we go through a lot of different considerations to make that are kind of universal depending on what you're doing. But that's also included in the Composer Accelerator for people that want to go into there. Again, thanks a lot for showing up here today. Really appreciate it. I gotta get into a session with an artist that's coming in here very soon now, so I gotta get ready for that. So someone called me earlier here up in the corner, but really appreciate you showing up. Again, email me, drop me some messages if you guys have any questions. Make sure to pull up on Monday at 10 a.m. PT Pacific time in LA. Should be about 7 p.m. in Europe, I think. Wally, correct me if I'm wrong. And submit your tracks. You'll get an email sent from Evenant shortly with a place to submit that. Hope to see you there. And if you're interested in checking out the Composer Accelerator program, the spots are going fast. So Wally, drop a link in the video under here. So if people are interested, they can check that out. If not, hope to see you on Monday. I'll definitely be doing more live streams like this. Really enjoying it. And I hope to see you in a future one. And wish you a beautiful weekend. And have a good one.